Welcome to Leaders Edge Network. This is part 5 of 7 in our Kvcore basic training, where we'll concentrate on customizing campaigns and building newsletters in Kvcore. My name is Deanna Faye Brown. I'm the team leader for the Connection Realtors Mega Icon team and a member of Leaders Edge Network. As we continue today on our Kvcore journey, we are looking at basic training session 5. We've gone through and activated our accounts, set up profiles, personalized websites, uploaded our database, and have learned how to create awesome CMAs, all with Kvcore. Now we're going to concentrate on how to customize some marketing campaigns and build our very own newsletter with this awesome tech platform. Let's get started. This week, we're going to spend our time here in the marketing component. Last week, we covered Core Present, where we did all CMAs. This week, we're going to talk a little bit more about smart campaigns and building out a campaign, and also how to create a custom newsletter, which might sound intimidating, but actually, once you dive into the program a little bit, isn't so terrible. It's not the most user-friendly platform I've ever worked with, but it's absolutely manageable and not something you should be intimidated by. And I'm going to show you a little bit of some things that I've been able to create with the marketing components in Kvcore. Then, just to give you a heads up, we're going to spend next week really diving into this lead engine section, talking about all of the tools here and sort of rounding out everything that we've done to talk about all the different layers of functionality in Kvcore. So at that point, we would have started with profile and website, progressed to our client database. Now we're working on really zoning in on marketing, CMAs, and then we're going to round it out with lead generation and how to really leverage Kvcore as a powerful lead engine tool. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Fasten your seatbelt.
Okay, yeah, because the newsletter, I find, is something that's very basic. And if it goes out once a month, at least it's a touch.
Yes, absolutely. And there are a number of things that are available to you that are sort of quick and easy. So the first thing that I want to be able to show you is if you go into marketing and you head down to the button for schedule a mass email, that's what we're going to take a look at first. There are two different things that you can do with a mass email. And you want to think of mass email as like a one-time event, as opposed to like a campaign, where a campaign is going to be a series of events. And campaigns can be a combination of different things. It could be an entire, 100% all emails. It could be a combination of email, text message, phone call, however you want to build out a campaign or leverage a pre-existing campaign in Kvcore. But understand that campaigns are multifaceted with multiple touches or contact points. And with a mass email, which is what we're going to look at first, you're talking about sort of a one-time thing. So I want to show you first how you can leverage a template to go ahead and send a mass email. So let's say it's, here it is, December 22nd, and you realize that, December came and went really quick and you never were able to get those holiday cards and get them out to your clients. Well, it's not too late to incorporate, an opportunity to connect with your clients using Kvcore. And the way that you can do that is you can go ahead and click on this schedule email. When you do that, this box is going to come up. And what it's going to do here is ask you for some criteria on how you're going to identify the email that you want to send. In my case, let's say that I want to send, and a lot of my database is centered around the team that I work with. So I have a lot of my clients in my CRM identified as either #connection_team or #connection_staff. So let's say I want to go ahead and send out an email to anybody in those two hashtag groups. I can simply start typing the hashtag label here. And once it comes up, I can click on it and it'll get added. So as of right now, everybody that falls into one of these hashtag categories will receive this mass email. Now, as we proceed, I'm just going to go ahead because I don't want to send it to everybody at this moment. But so I'm just going to go with test. I happen to have myself with an alternate email address that I use for test purposes anytime I do anything in Kvcore. As with anything, I recommend all the time in every platform I work on, it's really valuable to you to understand the client experience. Lends well to your credibility when you can help a client understand what to expect. So that's why I'm going to do it as a test today.
Okay.
You can also choose to send by status or to send by some other criteria, some other filter. So it's not just hashtags, but I do really encourage and have all along encouraged the use of hashtags with Kvcore. And again, I'll reiterate, think outside the box. If there is a common interest, if you have, a group of individuals that you walk with or run with or cycle with, or maybe you have a whole networking group, bring those people into your Kvcore as contacts, give them hashtags for whatever networking group you're in, and then you can include them in some of your marketing so that you stay on the forefront and you're first in somebody's mind when they're looking to provide a referral or connect somebody needing a realtor with you.
Okay.
Okay. So the other thing that you can do before we get to the content of what our mass email is going to be is you can identify specifically when you want this email sent. Okay. It'll give you a date. You can go ahead and change the date just by clicking in there on the calendar. And then you can even get as specific as setting the time. Okay. From there, we want to determine what content we want to send. And there are so many templates available to you in Kvcore that you can work from. I'm just going to start typing in the word holiday into the templates. And you'll see just by typing holiday, I've got 3 Thanksgiving options. There's even some Canada holidays in here. Now, I went ahead in advance and I took a look at some of the different templates that existed. And I really like this Happy New Year number 4. If you continue to scroll down, you'll find Happy Holidays. Okay. These are more like, around this time, Christmas, New Year's kind of thing. But if you were running a little bit behind and just wanted to get yourself together for New Year's, let's just go with this platform for Happy New Year.
Okay.
Once I select the template.
That's pretty much more generic.
Yes.
Okay.
So once I select the template, now look what I did. So let me go back and show you. Oops. Holiday. So when I went through the list, I want to make sure that I'm choosing 2022. I must have chosen the 2021 before. So once I choose the 2022, there it is. Okay.
Okay.
So this is going to give you a preview now of what this template will look like from the recipient's end. So it has a graphic here with the year. It has a message, which I like. Like I said, I looked at the different templates and this message kind of made sense to me, seemed reasonable. I didn't want to make any edits. The one thing that I did do is I went ahead at the bottom and I clicked on include assigned agent signature. Okay, because I wanted to make sure I had my signature with all of my contact information and also some of the important compliance disclosure information included in my email. I actually went ahead and sent this out earlier today. Once you get to this point, if you've entered your hashtags, if you have an individual Kvcore account as opposed to a team account, your name is going to be the only name here. So as long as you've identified who's going to get it and identified when you want to send it, as long as you're happy with the content, you're pleased with this content, you can go ahead and click the schedule button. And it will set it up.
And you
can
can edit this. I mean, you don't have to do a total rewrite.
That's right.
You can edit it.
Yes. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute because it's very easy to do, but I recommend doing it in a slightly different place. And I'm going to explain to you why in just a moment. So let me show you.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
And real quick,
sure.
The contacts, when you send the email to the contacts matching criteria from Save Filter, that we have to upload our CRM, correct?
You want to upload?
I mean, not CRM, our CSV database.
Your database, yes.
Yeah.
So at this point, you should, and I can go back and show you a little bit of my database. And I can also circle back with you separately, Giselle, and talk about how you can do some formatting in advance with your CSV file to get it as sort of like as robust and complete as you can prior to uploading it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
It's a lot easier to work through, that portion of the project in spreadsheet form than having to click on each individual contact once it's uploaded. So from this standpoint, again, from the client's experience, this is what the email will look like. So I made no changes. The graphics are exactly as they appeared, the message. I have my email signature. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, this was included in the template, and it's also included here, a button to very easily direct people to my website. Okay. So that's if I don't want to make any changes. But let's say I did want to customize my message a little bit. Let me go ahead and leave here. Now, if I were to go in right where I was and go directly to scheduling the email, if I made changes to the template, it's not going to save those changes on that template for future years. It'll make that change in the moment in that message that goes out. But maybe I want to have a permanent place where I can go back next year or in future periods and review the changes that I made. If that's the case, then we can go to marketing and go to smart campaigns, go to this button. So we were just here in scheduling a mass email. Now we're going to go to smart campaigns here. And I'm going to go to the Kvcore templates here. Okay. Once I'm in templates, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to type the word holiday and search for holiday. And then when I do that, you're going to see that the same list will come up that we saw before, right when we were trying to schedule the email. So if I went in, here's that same Happy New Year for 2022. What are your New Year's real estate resolutions? Now it's giving me the option to clone. Once I clone it, what that does is it preserves the original template that Kvcore built, but then it gives you a copy that you can then work from and rename and make permanent edits to. So you can save it as a template that you can use going forward. Now, that may be something that I want to leverage, because if I really like my New Year's message, maybe I go in depth about some things, like what you do at the start of the year, resolutions. Maybe I have an event every January that I want people to come to. So maybe I build out this message, this Happy New Year message, and want to be able to duplicate it every year. It's very simple to go back in and just change the graphic next year and set it up again as another mass email. So let's say we want to do that. Let's say we want to make edits. Maybe I didn't like that graphic so much and I want to change it. So we can very easily go to clone. And now it's going to ask us to give this template a name. See how it's automatically trying to force it as a copy. So what I like to do, I think it's easier because of all of the templates, all of the standard templates that Kvcore makes available. I really like the idea of starting with your name, so that if you want to go back and find a template that you customized, if you just search the template list by your name, it'll identify any of your custom work. Okay. So I went ahead and renamed it, took out the word copy. I like the subject line. And one thing that I will mention about the subject line, because it's a very cool tool that I didn't even know existed until a couple of weeks ago. When actually I was on a call with Jean and some other people and learned about it. It's a tool called Send Check It. Send Check It is a website. If you wanted to make note of it, it's www.sendcheckit.com. And what it does is you can enter the subject line of your email address and you can test it out, and you can get a score of what that subject line rates in terms of, how likely it is to get into a person's inbox or get clicks, how advanced or understood it is. It gives you like a whole set of criteria. Like, whoever would have thought that somebody puts that much analytics or metrics into just the subject line of an email. But it's a really cool tool. And I will mention, I'm going to show you a newsletter in a minute, but my first ever version of my newsletter scored really crappy. so it is a valuable tool as you start to build out some of your contacts to leverage a program like this. Simple, it's free, doesn't cost you anything. Okay, so I'm happy with this. What are your New Year's real estate resolutions? I like that subject, but maybe, like I said, I don't like this image. What I can simply do is within this preview window, I can click on the image and you'll see that it opens up a number of fields or properties on the right-hand side. I can change the sizing of the image if I wanted to using this sliding scale, or I can also change the image out completely by clicking on this change image button. Now, to do that, you're going to want to have your images ready and available and need to be able to upload them. For sake of time today, I already have images uploaded so that we don't have to go through that process. But just understand that when you're building custom content, it really will be helpful when you get to this point where you're trying to actually build out what the template will look like if you've done that sort of pre-work in advance. If you've maybe at least have a rough draft of your written content and have your images all ready to go in JPEG form to upload, makes this point, this part of the edit process much easier. So let's say I happen to have this image here that I like, so I want to go ahead and insert it. So it's that simple. It took the other image out, replaced it with the image that I wanted with the upload, and then I can go ahead and add additional information too. I can customize this message just by clicking on the message. I can add additional content. So let's say, and again, I'm not actually going to send this out to anybody in my contact list. So I'm not going to be like super precise or crazy, but let's say I wanted my message to include something about home safety. So maybe my message is now is the time to perform your home safety checks. Okay. And let's say I did some research on the internet and I found a fire safety checklist that I really liked. That just helps, again, sometimes if your message is solely centered around real estate and the fact that you're a realtor that can service real estate needs, sometimes your message might get overlooked. But I think where you add value is when you connect with people on other levels. So this is a great opportunity to, put fire safety in front of them, let them know in a subtle and soft way that you have their well-being at heart. And what you can do with a tool like this, having this checklist, is I can go back into my Kvcore and I can actually insert a link. So here's my text box. What I can do below it is I can go, so here I have my image, here I have my text, here I have my title. I can go back to the content tab over here on the right-hand side, and I can scroll down and I can actually check this word button. When I click over or slide over the button, I can place this button. You'll see I'm still holding on to my mouse. I can place this button anywhere in my document and see how I added a button. I can then take that button and move it around. Maybe I wanted my website to be first, and I can, by clicking on the arrows over here on the right-hand side, I can slide it back and forth where I want it to appear in my email. Now, once the button is there, I have to give it a function. So to do that, I'm going to click on the button itself and I'm going to name it. Let's say I want to call it Fire Safety Checklist. Okay. And now on the right-hand side, I need to identify the URL. I need to identify the website where somebody could click on this and find this checklist. So I'm simply going to go back to my website. I'm going to copy this entire URL, right-click and copy, go back over to Kvcore, and I'm going to right-click and paste. And it's that simple. So now if somebody receives this email, they have two buttons that they can click on. They can click on the fire safety checklist, or they can also still go ahead and visit my website. If I didn't want one of these buttons to appear in the message, I can simply make sure that my cursor, my mouse, has that particular section of the email highlighted, and the highlight in Kvcore is this blue outline. And then I can just click on the trash can over to the right-hand side. So let's say I didn't want the website button. I simply click on the trash can. It's going to say, "Are you sure?" And there you go. I removed it. Now let's say that I wanted to add a divider. that I maybe wanted to have multiple sections in my email, I can do that here just by, again, clicking on the icon, sliding it over to my message, and placing it wherever I wanted it to go. I can also add another text box. I could add more images. I can even upload a video clip here right in the body of the email. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do right from this particular edit. I guess I would call it a template editor. Once you make those changes and you're satisfied with it, at the bottom, you click on Clone Template. That's going to be in the bottom left-hand corner. And so then here we have, let me go back. So if I go back to the list of templates and I just type in my name, I've made a couple of edits and have done this a couple of times just to be able to show you. So here's an example. Here's the one that we just did. If I wanted to go back and edit it, let's say, again, I was really happy with the content and found it to be very successful for 2022 and want to replicate it for 2023, all I'm going to have to do is go into edit it and then go ahead and maybe I want to change the title to reflect 2023. I can click on my image, go ahead and swap that out for an image that I upload for the new year, and then update my template. Okay. Then once I'm satisfied with those changes, I can simply go back in. Remember, we were in from marketing. Go ahead and find that scheduled mass email section. And then what I can do is I can schedule an email, that button in the top right corner. And here in templates, now instead of typing in the word holiday, I'm going to type in the word Deanna. And here's my message for 2022. It's going to give me that preview again. But at this point, because I've already done all of my edits in the other screen, I shouldn't have to do anything additional here. I should just be ready to go ahead and send it out. Now, the one cool thing, I told you that I did create a test contact in my client list, but you don't have to do that. You can also send a test right from here, and that will go to your EXP email address. What I like to do also is my test email has nothing to do with my EXP email or the alias or the email that it forwards to. It's like a completely separate email account that has nothing to do with EXP, because again, I just like to really make sure that I'm comfortable with the client experience, but you can always send a test here. I love to send the test when I'm working on a newsletter because oftentimes, because there are multiple layers and components to a newsletter, I'm like one of those people that I really like to make sure that the font is consistent, that the formatting and the font size is consistent. So I'll leverage this send test multiple times until I work out the kinks and I'm happy with my final draft. So that's available to you too. But it's going to be the same idea. When you're ready with your email, identify who you want to be able to send this email to. I like to leverage a lot with hashtags for this type of message, but certainly status works as well. And then again, schedule date and time, and it will hold true within a few minutes at most to the date and time that you set. And notice if I click on 12/22 now, it's not like one of these programs where you need a lot of lead time. It's 10:29 now, and I can still select to send a mass email at 10:30. So it's not like you have to know hours in advance. Okay. So again, if you haven't been able to get that holiday message out to your clients, here's your opportunity. You know, time is not lost. You can leverage Kvcore to help you with that. Okay. So does that make sense to everybody with sending a mass email?
Yes, I'm just trying to mess around with it right now. And
sure.
And I feel like it's in there, but then when I go to the edit button again to try to add a button, it just gives me like a blank email template. So I don't know what I did. So I'm going to try and reclone it again from the original.
And see, sometimes once you're working in the clone, so let me show you just one more time, because it could have something to do with this. Let's go into the template. So let's say I'm working on a template, like one of the ones that we just edited. You want to make sure when you're in there, so I'm going to click on edit. Whenever you make changes, you want to be certain to click at the bottom left, update template. if you don't do that, it's essentially like you're not saving it. And so it won't recognize that you made edits. And the only thing that will be there when you click out, when you X out of this box, is the original Kvcore version of the template.
Gotcha. Okay.
But as long as you're clicking update template and you've renamed it, again, rename it to make it easier to find, then you should have no problem, especially if you have to stop and start kind of thing, make some edits. Maybe you want to go back and do some research or something, or, get sidetracked with some other things, come back to it later. As long as you're saving it, you can easily hop back in and pick up where you left off on your edits. Okay. So the other thing that I want to show you is the newsletter template. So if we go over to templates, again, this is going to be your blank slate with Kvcore. There are a number of programs out there that you can subscribe to or make purchases with, where you can buy newsletter content. And that might make absolute sense for you. I would not for a second discourage you from doing that. But my goal here today is just to show you some functionality that's readily available to you in Kvcore. I've just gone through my second newsletter, and the newsletters are a little bit more cumbersome. The emails that we just talked about are sort of quick, easy edits, and there's a lot of varied formats and content. So you can pretty much find something there that would probably require very little, if any, editing on your part to get you to the point where you're satisfied with it to send it. But the newsletter is going to take elbow grease. You're just starting with a template, and you've got to build in all the content. The thing I love about it is because with my Kvcore right now, I'm really leveraging it a lot more for communication with my team members than maybe from a client standpoint. So I'm going to start, I'm still in marketing, and I'm going to go to templates, and I'm going to type in newsletter. Okay, and search. When I do that, you're going to see there are three. The first one's called newsletter, and you'll see that the only thing that I can do there is clone it. That's going to be your clue that this is a Kvcore template. Okay. The next one is a team newsletter template. This is a template that I cloned. So I took this original template and I cloned it, and I wasn't yet at the point where I said, oh, I should start with Deanna. But this I know was my first newsletter that I did back in October. So I want to go ahead and actually, I'm going to go into a different place. It's going to give you a little bit of a better screen. I want to show you in a minute what my finished product looks like. And then I also just worked through this week my next installment, which is 2 months later. So far, I've found that there's so much content. I really would like to get to the point where I can do once a month, but we've been doing so many other things this year that, and the newsletter takes a little bit more time and a little bit more focus. So I'd rather make sure that I'm giving good content. And if that means valuable, important content every 60 days, as opposed to just sending it out to be able to say I sent out a newsletter, then I'll make sure to put in the extra time and just send 6 newsletters of good content or great content, as opposed to 12 of mediocre to good content, if that makes sense. So what I want to just show you is I'm going to hop back in just to be able to show you the example of what my newsletter looks like. I'm going to head back to my mass emails, because once I built that newsletter in October, I did send it out as a mass email, and this is what it looked like. And this was my first effort. So it kind of felt like a baby, like I really was kind of pleased with myself for taking the time to master it in Kvcore. So it was around Halloween. So I wanted to sort of brand it a little bit to Halloween. But again, my goal was to make sure that the content was meaningful to the agents that were receiving it. So from my standpoint, I have a section that specifically addresses some component of our team that I want to make sure our team members know exists, that they can leverage themselves. And so I talked about mentorship. Then I wanted to make sure that the agents were aware of the ethics training requirement that they may or may not meet due at the end of the year. If you have been licensed for a longer period of time, the New Jersey brokers were warning that your CE credits may or may not have covered this ethics requirement. And then I added a link. So if somebody clicks on this link within the body of my newsletter, it can actually take them to the NAR website where they can log in and check their status right here. Check your code of ethics status. Okay. So again, looking to make my content meaningful to the person who's working through the newsletter. I participate in the New Jersey brokers meetings every week to try and make sure, because I know a lot of my team members don't. So I want to make sure that I'm bringing back the most relevant and important content back to them. Referrals was a big topic at this time, so I wanted to make sure that they knew about referrals. And here in this case, instead of adding a button that tied them to a link to another website, these two buttons actually connect to forms. So if I click on the referral form, it's actually a PDF that I attach, same way that I attached a URL and a link. I can attach a PDF right to my newsletter. Okay. So again, it's leveraging the functionality.
Okay. So the button or the functionality of like the learn more and those buttons to log into Workplace, that's basically all of the same editor pieces from what we just went through.
Yep, exactly. And I'm going to show you, we're actually going to go into a newsletter, and I'm not going to create one from scratch that's this extensive, but I'm going to show you how to create one from scratch that takes, like, let's say 1 or 2 sections. And then you can kind of mimic that and build your own out from there. So we're going to do that in just a second. So I also like to be able to highlight a particular technology platform. So my first newsletter talked about Workplace and Workplace chat. Okay. So these are some of the things that I included in my content in my first newsletter.
That's a great first newsletter.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was very proud of it. And now I will tell you that first one, my first experience, I probably spent maybe 4 or 5 hours building that out, because it was about what is the content, right? Uploading my images, thinking through my images, and where I happen to have a Shutterstock account, but there are a lot of places where you can go and get free images. Just make sure that you're not dealing with any copyright issues wherever you're pulling your images from. But it's sort of working out the content, getting all of my images ready, and then actually learning the newsletter program and playing around with it a little bit took more time. But then this week I just went through, and I'm going to show you now, I went through and did my December newsletter. So I'm going to go back to templates, and I'm going to type the word newsletter again and search. And so what I did, as I've learned, is I made sure that I started to include the date. Now, as I go forward into 2022, I'm also going to, like I said, remember, include my name at the beginning. So I know it's one of my customized documents. But in this case with newsletter, I'm going to also include the date in the title. So if I want to refer back to one, I don't have to hunt and peck to figure out which one's which. So I'm going to click on edit just so I can show you this content, because I haven't sent it out yet. Again, just like we did with our other newsletter, you do have the ability to send a test. So like I said, I've done that multiple times to make sure that I like the way that the finished product looks on the other side. So I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. And this is what I've done. So again, I started with a banner, something reflective of the time of year, and my team logo. And then again, I'm keeping the same general format. So identifying some aspect of the team that I want to draw attention to. In this case, for this newsletter, I did my holiday message. I kept the ethics training because it's still relevant, because the deadline is December 31st. So I didn't change anything there. That was easy. I was able to move on pretty quickly to the next section. Remember, in the last newsletter, I highlighted the referral process with information from the broker's office. This time, a really big message at just last week's meeting was about powers of attorney and authorization to sign. So I wanted to make sure that I delivered that content to my team. Okay, so I'm doing a lot of leveraging from my prior format and trying to keep a lot of the sections the same, and just changing whatever the message might be for that particular month. I copied and pasted a message from the New Jersey broker's office about Circle of Excellence, and then I added a link for this website. So it's telling agents to go to this website. And so I actually added a link to make it as easy as possible for the agents who want to submit their Circle of Excellence applications. Okay. Same thing. I make sure to address a program spotlight with EXP and a tech spotlight with EXP. Okay. And then just a couple of additional things, sort of important dates, things you shouldn't forget, like pay your MLS dues before you get fined, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's my December content. So let's try together. I'm just going to go ahead and exit without saving. Let's go ahead and try a newsletter together, just to add a couple of these components so you can get a sense of how it would work. So again, you're going to start from newsletter, and you're going to find the one that just has clone next to it. So I'm going to hit the word clone. It's going to bring me to this top screen where I first want to make sure I go ahead and change the title of the. So I'm going to put test newsletter. Okay. And remember, whatever your message wants to be, remember, go to send, check it, make sure that you don't get a C. And then that can be the message that you save for your subject line. Now, as you scroll down, which you can do over here on the right-hand side with this scroll bar, you will see that right now you are looking at a pure template. All the content needs to be built in by you, okay? Unlike some of the other templates, like we did with the Happy New Year, where the imaging, the graphics, the message were already there and you didn't have to, you could, but you didn't have to tweak it. Clearly, this is not a plug in and go kind of template here with newsletter. But so let's say I went ahead and just created a little bit of content ahead of time because I wanted to make sure, again, that we could flow through the building of the newsletter fairly quickly. So this is sort of what I want my message to be. I'm going to create a newsletter, recognizing the new year, how busy a time of year it is. And I'm going to mention 4 R's. I tend to do this a lot in my writing, but review, reflect, recharge, resolve. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build 4 sections. We might only do 2 right now, but I'm going to build out 4 sections in my newsletter that address each of these R's: review, reflect, recharge, and resolve. So let's go back to that template. What I want to do is start with my header. Now, if I don't have a header and I want to go right into my image, now in what I might suggest these 2 different things might be is you might have like your team logo or your personal logo, and then maybe you want to have a banner that says Happy Holidays or something. I'm going to go ahead. I only want one image at the top of my newsletter for our example. So I'm just going to click on the first one and trash can it. I could always go back using these buttons on the right-hand side and pull something back in, pull a function or a feature back in if I change my mind. But for now, I'm ready to just go ahead and start with my image. So I'm going to browse, and I'm going to go back to that blue 2022 image that I liked from our previous example. So again, we need to work through all the content. So here's a placeholder for our subject header. So let's just say Happy New Year. And then I'm going to go ahead and move my mouse to this text box. It's all in Latin, and that's to make sure that you don't go ahead and send it out that way. So I'm going to go hop over to my Word document where I did some of my legwork up front. And I'm simply going to copy this text. I'm going to hop back over to my Kvcore, and I'm going to paste it in here. Once I paste it in, I can highlight it right here while I'm in this text box and change anything about the font to my desire. So maybe I like Helvetica. So I just changed the font to Helvetica, and then maybe I want to make it bigger. So I'm going to highlight it again. And let's give 16 a try. Okay, so maybe, all right, I like that size. That seems to work. So now let me go ahead and justify it because I really like the edges left and right to look clean. Okay, so take a look at what we did. We just went ahead and we added our header, we changed our title, and we copied and pasted in our message, our our greeting, if you will, to the recipients of our newsletter. Okay. So now you have the option. You can leave this read more, or you can go ahead and remove it. I just like to have my my content flow all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the read more. Now, like I said before, I really want to have 4 sections in my newsletter that reflect those 4 R's: review, reflect, recharge, resolve. So let's go to the next section. You'll see how the template already has a divider built in. So it's going to give me some natural flow from one section to the next. And let's just take a look at how the rest of the template is set up. So you'll see in the next section, again, you're filling in all the content, but the format, it's giving you an image on the left-hand side. It's giving you a title. It's giving you a place to put in, a text box with some words, some verbiage. And then if I scroll down the next section, just visually gives a little bit of a different appeal, right? So now the image is on the right-hand side, but it's the same idea. The template is going to give you the ability to do an image, to do a title, to do verbiage, and to do a button. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do a couple of those in just a minute. So as you continue to scroll down, you'll see how things vary a little bit. And then it also adds this section where it does columns. So rather than do top bottom, you can see some features side by side. So how about we do this? Let's scroll back up. Let's work on our first section, which I said was going to be review. So let's say for review, let's just say year in review. Or maybe I just want to use the word review to specifically tie back to my earlier message. If I was pulling in an article, if somebody was writing this for me, then I would want to go ahead and include their name here. But in this case, I just want to get rid of this text box. And the way that I can do that is I can just go ahead and click on it and delete it. Okay, so here, make sure that you're look for that blue outline, and then I can just click on the trash can button. Make sure that your blue outline is surrounding whatever you want to delete. Okay, and it does a good job of always prompting you. But again, don't panic, because you can always import. If you wanted to add that text box back in, you could simply do it by coming over here to the text, to the content tab on text, and you can simply drag and drop, and it'll insert that box back in there for you. Okay. So let's say for year in review, so how did your 2021 reality match up with your goals? Okay. For my picture, let's say I want to add an image. And now what I would recommend too is if you lay out your newsletter all in advance, it's really helpful to have all your photos ready. And once you go in to upload one photo here, just upload them all at one time. So then they'll all be, readily accessible as you work through the rest of your newsletter. So I'm doing the year in review. So maybe what I want to do is, let's do invest in yourself. And so maybe for this section, I don't have any content that I specifically want to add in my example, but maybe you have a template that you've worked from. Like last week, we talked a lot about business planning at the end of our session, and there were some tools that we made available, like a budgeting spreadsheet. And we also talked about having a format for it's a 1-3-5 business planning model. Maybe you have sort of an evaluation worksheet that you received from a seminar or from a coach or something along the way that you think is really valuable, and it's a tool that you want to share. Maybe you have it in PDF format. You can simply go ahead and take this button and set it up so that it becomes a link to a document. And the way that you do that, let me go ahead and I'm going to delete the button that's there, and I'm going to drag over a button. And when I click on the button, I'm going to tell this link what I want it to be. Let me see. There we go. So in this case, I want to link a file. So if you want to link a file, you want to go ahead and upload your file here in the file manager. And then you can link a file like a PDF as opposed to an actual URL. Okay, so I'm just going to show you that one more time. I don't have an actual document here. Oh, and this is what exactly probably just happened to you, Giselle. I just went in and completely clicked out of my newsletter and didn't save it. Okay.
Sometimes that's going to be a lot of tears if I don't remember.
Well, you know what? As every single time that you complete a section, so I just did it once, and now I promise you I won't do it the rest of the day. So I can go ahead and just, let me get rid of this. Let's go ahead and browse, drag our image.
I like the idea though that you had all of your content in like a, like a Google document, so that if you do need to just cut and paste, like work everything out in like Google or, Word, wherever.
Yes,
so that
I highly recommend.
Yeah,
yes.
I like that you did that.
Highly recommend. It does, because when you get to this point, quite frankly, you just really want to be able to concentrate on the program and the functionality, not on the content piece. So
that makes sense.
But you see, it's, it's not terrible. I was able to kind of, just because and this is only my second newsletter, remember, so this is not like I've been doing this for 6 months or a year. And I can already, there are a couple of things that do take me a little bit more time, and the buttons are one of them, but I can easily go back and get back to where I was. So let's say here we did review. Okay, now let's say I want to go to my next section, and my next section is going to be reflect. And maybe with reflect, I like the idea of something fun, maybe not resolution driven or necessarily business driven, but just something relaxing. So for that, I might have a recipe, and I might tell people, take a little time to relax and enjoy the holiday season. Okay, so let's say that's my content. And then what I want to do is, I already went ahead and did this, is I researched and I found a recipe. And fortunate for me, I found the recipe that also had a photo that could work well with it in Shutterstock. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my recipe for hot chocolate and take it right over to Kvcore and paste it in. Now I can do the same thing I did before, just simply highlight. Once I'm working in the text box and I put my mouse in the text box, I can simply highlight the content, go up and change the font. So maybe I like the Helvetica, I want to stay with that. And then once I change the font, I just want to go ahead and highlight again. I don't think I got everything here. There we go. I can go ahead and highlight again to change the size. Okay, so I've added my recipe. And then maybe I want to go ahead and add a photo that works with that particular section of my newsletter. Okay. So now I have 2 sections left. Let's say we did review, we did reflect. So let's say recharge and resolve. And maybe if I scroll down in this template, I really like the idea of doing side by side for these last 2. And so I don't need some of this content in the middle, some of these placeholders. So all I'm simply going to do is leverage the trash can to delete the content. Okay, just make sure that my blue box is around the content I want to remove and hit that trash can. Okay, I can go ahead and get rid here. I want to get rid of this one. And then get rid of this. So let's see, I want to make sure I have, so I have a divider up here. So I can go ahead and get rid of this duplicate one here. Okay. So let's say I'm now working in the side by side and I want to, let's do recharge. So maybe I'm going to take recharge literally. I do want to keep my fonts consistent. I really like the Helvetica and I'm going to go with something bigger. I think I did like the 16 or the 18. Okay, and maybe so now what I might say is now is a great time to run through a fire safety check. Okay, so maybe I'm taking recharge literally, like charging batteries. Okay, remember like we did before, we talked about maybe you wanted to customize that email, that Happy New Year email, and send a fire safety checklist. Well, you can do that in your newsletter too. You can include that link. So what I can do is the link is already there for me, the functionality, the button. Now I just have to, tell it what to do in the background. So again, I can just click on the text labeling and rename it. So maybe I call it a fire safety checklist. And I still have that web URL open. So I'm going to copy that URL. I'm going to hop back into my Kvcore and I'm going to paste that URL here. Okay. Remember, if I had a file, like if I had a PDF as opposed to a website that I wanted to direct someone to, I could use this link file button to do that. Then I might add a picture. And maybe this one works in this case, reminding people to do a safety check. Okay. And then maybe the last one is going to be resolve. Okay, so this is kind of like, okay, we've talked about reviewing the prior year, taking a little time to relax, getting your house in order with a good fire safety check. And now let's talk about what's ahead. A great time to consider home improvement projects that can improve the value and appeal of okay. So what I found here, just for our example today, is let's see if I saved it anywhere. There was a there was an HGTV, here it is, perfect. There was an HGTV article. Now it's dated, but again, just for the purpose of showing you how this functionality can work. This is an HGTV article that I thought recipients of my newsletter might find interesting, being able to read about the top 15 home updates. And what I liked about this is when you click on the gallery, it actually shows you the return on your investment, how much you can expect to get back. And it dealt with everything from bathroom and kitchen remodels to landscaping, to exterior improvements, that sort of thing. But so what I can do is I can copy, same thing like I did with the checklist. I can copy this URL. I can go into the button and I can paste that URL here so that if somebody clicks on it, they're going to be led to that article. So now I might say in my button, I might say read more or read the article or something to that effect. And then maybe I want to include a photo. Let's include the cash. Okay. In the content of our newsletter. So I'm going to go ahead. I haven't done it yet, so I want to make sure I do it now so the same thing doesn't happen. I'm going to go ahead and hit clone template in the bottom left-hand corner. That's going to save all my changes. So now if I go back and type in, remember, because we named it Deanna to start with, I can now use my, my search functionality and find Deanna newsletter, test newsletter. So if I want to go back and make changes to it, I can just click on edit again. And now you'll see that everything that we've done so far is still there. Okay. Here's our hot chocolate. Now, if I want to get completely rid of this, so it left a placeholder, even though I removed all those individual text box and image boxes, I still have to go through and highlight this entire section and delete it as well. Okay, and as soon as I do that, you see that that section is completely removed, and then it pulls up the other pieces that we already edited for continuous flow. Okay, and so again, I just made changes. I want to go ahead and update the template to make sure that those changes are saved. And then anytime you do that, just understand it's going to take you out of the template itself. Now, if I were ready to go ahead and send this template, I could go back into marketing. I could go to my schedule mass emails, click on get started. Now I'm going to schedule a new one. I'm going to use hashtags. I'm big on the hashtags. I'm just going to send it to my test. But again, when I send out my December newsletter later today, it's going to be to all the team members and staff that I have in my client database. I'm going to go ahead and give this a time. And let's say, it's 11 o'clock now. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself 11:30 as a time to send it. And now I'm going to go into templates and I'm going to find the actual template I'm sending, which is going to be this test newsletter. You'll see that even one more time, it's going to pull it up for me to view the content. And I can go ahead and make additional edits here, but I don't know for certain that those edits will save back to the template. So anytime that you're doing any customization, I strongly encourage you to do that in the campaign section and then send from here. But if you're going to leverage something that's fully formatted already without making any changes, then feel free to just go directly here, schedule your email, click on the schedule button in the bottom left-hand corner, and you're done. When you do that, and so here, if you just scroll down, this is exactly what we did where we left off. Now, if I were doing this for real, I would make sure to get rid of these additional sections as well, the same way, by just clicking on them, hitting the trash can button, make sure I get rid of all that empty space as well. There's also the ability at the bottom for you to go ahead and add information about, where the content came from, who to contact if you want to be added or removed from a mailing list and so forth. Then once I hit schedule, I can go ahead and see, let me just, gotta move everybody's head here. Once I hit schedule, I can go ahead and see that my newsletter is scheduled here for December 22nd. I can still edit it because it hasn't been sent yet. And I see that I have one contact estimated for that to be sent to. Okay. Now I did not change the subject line of my email from newsletter. So when you see newsletter here, that's not the template name, that's the subject line of the email. Okay, so whatever your subject line is what you would see here in the list. Once it's gone out, then you can see the number of people it was sent to, and you can go back and view the content of that item here. The one thing I don't like necessarily about Kvcore is that I wish right from here, I could see some metrics about how many people actually clicked on the email, how many people opened it, and then maybe how many people actually did click on some of those buttons and leverage some of that functionality, which I haven't found a way to do from here for this specific item. But what you can do is you can go into your Smart CRM, which is your client database section. And from there, you can click on an individual. So let's say I'm going to pick on Tom. Okay, so here's Tom. Tom was one of those 66 people that received my October newsletter. If I click on Tom, and this would be your experience for any of the clients in your CRM, in your database, okay? When you click on that particular contact, you're going to see at a dashboard's glance everything that's going on with Tom. On the left-hand side, you'll see that he is part of the connection team hashtag. So anything that I do for connection team is going to include Tom. You'll also see that he's part of this import. That's because I included him in a database that I built in spreadsheet form and imported him in. That's why that's there. But in the center here, this is where I can see what I've done with Tom so far in Kvcore. Okay, so you'll see that he was added as a contact, then was added with a hashtag to connection team. And then here is the email that I sent on October 29th, the first newsletter. Okay, now what I can do, if I look over on the right-hand side, see how there's an envelope there? The envelope is open. So that tells me that Tom actually did open the email. Okay, and if I click on the button, and it's a little bit testy, sometimes you have to do it a couple of times, but if I click on that envelope, then it should actually leave the box open for me to be able to see everything that Tom did in that email. So obviously it looks like he opened it a number of times, maybe to read the content and review the content, but it doesn't look like he clicked on anything. Now, if I go back, let's say I want to look at another individual. Let me X out of here and let me go back and find Inez. So that tells me he opened the content, but didn't click through it. So I'm going to pick on Inez. And again, here's another open email from the 29th. So I know she opened it. And now here you can see, so she received it on the evening that it was sent, and she clicked on multiple items within that email. So while I might not be able to very easily, at least at this point, figure out how to determine if a particular email was successful, what I can do is understand from a client to client perspective, understand if that client is engaged with the content that I'm sending. So from my standpoint, I told you a lot of my content is geared towards team members. Maybe I have somebody that's consistently having compliance issues. And maybe I know that several of the compliance issues that they're having were addressed in these newsletters. So maybe before we have that conversation and try to, write the train, I can go back and review the history for that particular contact and know if they're engaged and leveraging the content that I'm sending. Okay. If I look across a majority of my team and I see that this is a closed envelope and people aren't clicking on it, then that tells me that I have to go back and make some changes. I have to change the way that I'm preparing the newsletter, delivering the newsletter, and then subjecting the newsletter as well to make sure that I'm getting as many opens and as clicks as possible. Okay, so that's sort of an overview of the marketing function. Recognize that there are so many templates that you can leverage and start from. You don't have to make any edits, but if you do want to, it's fairly simple to edit. And then I encourage you to dive in and give the newsletter a try. Think about, and again, you can go to a third party and purchase content for a newsletter, or you can try and build something on your own. It doesn't have to be pages and pages of content. Just think about something. Think about your clients. Think about how you've organized your clients by hashtag. And like I said, I really encourage you to think about how to leverage a newsletter to address relationships from another perspective besides just saying, I'm a realtor, send me your business. So now we've come to the end of our week 5 session of our Kvcore basic training. We spent time today really understanding how to leverage the templates that Kvcore makes available to you to be able to send out email correspondence to anyone in your database. We talked about how you can customize some of that content to add your own personal flair or message or personality to that content. And then we also spent some time talking about how to design your own custom newsletter, all within Kvcore, all covered by your $85 a month tech and education fee to EXP. So now it's time to look at what's your week 5 homework. Well, time for you to turn around and log into your Kvcore, leverage the templates, create a mass email, and send it out to a select group from your CRM database. leverage an existing template, making no changes. Once you feel comfortable with that step, go ahead and take it the next step. Now you're ready to start customizing. Make some slight changes. Maybe change up your graphics or your messaging, and then send out that customized message, whether you send it to another group from your CRM or to yourself as a test. It's important that you go through the exercise of actually doing some of that customization. And then if you really want to take it to the next level, I encourage you, try the newsletter. Whether you want to send a newsletter once a year, once a quarter, once every other month, it can be a fantastic way of connecting with those in your database on levels other than real estate, where you can give real, valuable content to people in your sphere that will help them recognize you as a trusted resource in their lives. So good luck with those exercises. I hope that you're successful. Continue to monitor our YouTube channel for any Leaders Edge Kvcore trainings that we make available. And be sure to tune in for session 6, because next we're going to talk about squeeze pages and landing pages. We continue to now bring your Kvcore to life. Thank you so much for joining us.